The Rance series spans over 10 games and features countless characters. Where do these games take place? Well, the story takes place on a landmass known as the continent, and a lot of the info regarding the setting isn't really explained outright in the games unless you explore deeply in the manuals and optional content. So in this video, I'd like to talk about the continent briefly and the rules that govern it. But of course, there's so much to talk about since the series spans over 30 years, so I want to make a separate video in the future about the many nations of the continent. So what is the continent? It's essentially a flat earth with the sun and moon revolving around it, and is supported by 4 holy beasts that carry the continent on their backs. They're on each corner, and they are giant creatures that resemble animals. They include a lizard, elephant, human monk, and a fly. They only support the world and don't influence it in any way, but they do cause like earthquakes when they move. The continent and the beasts are all formed from souls, which is a fundamental part of the series since all life forms are composed of souls, which originate from Ratham, who is the creator god of Rance. Ratham is a giant whale with 72 wings that floats in the empty void of space. He decided to create the continent out of boredom. Using his own body, which is comprised of 10 billion souls, he created the continent and the holy beasts that support it. But since an empty world is boring, he then created 3 supreme gods to manage the continent for him for his own amusement. The 3 supreme gods, Planner, Harmonet, and Ravenplan, are the ones responsible for making the world more entertaining for their creator. Of the 3 supreme gods, Planner is the most influential as he established the Planner scenario. The purpose of the scenario is to create conflicts between the protagonist race and the monsters that inhabit this continent. It was created to entertain the Ratham, who is amused by the suffering of mortals and wishes it to continue indefinitely. Many rules are put in place so that there's always suffering without any individual breaking the balance of the world. These rules resemble the mechanics of a typical RPG. First off are levels. Like a game, the level corresponds to the strength of the person, which can be raised by exchanging experience points to a level god. To make sure that the balance isn't broken, every individual has a level cap. Rance, however, is a balance breaker since he does not have a level cap. Next up are skills. These are abilities that people have like cooking and sword fighting, and there are 3 levels. Level 1 is good proficiency and can perform better than the average person. One example is Urza Parnace with a strategy level of 1. This means that she's better than the average person when it comes to planning battles and assessing the battlefield. Level 2 would be considered a genius in their field and have an ability unique to them. Rance has level 2 sword combat, which gives him the ability to perform his special move, the Rance attack, which is an AoE shockwave produced by his sword swing. Sanakia Jeshkaf once attempted to learn this attack from Rance himself, but due to having only level 1 sword combat and it being a unique skill, she is unsuccessful. Level 3 is the rarest and thus the most powerful, with those possessing it being legendary figures. Rick Addison is an extremely skilled fighter that even Rance has had difficulty fighting, and he's still only level 2 sword combat. Strongest mage in history, MM Moon discovered death magic that could achieve immortality by metallizing human cells. This was a result of his unique biomagic, which led to a creation of Torshul or warlords in the Transfer division. These are immortal androids, and this feat led him to lead humanity into unification by leading the Holy Magic sect. This is possible due to his Magic 3 level. But having 0 levels in a skill, however, doesn't mean that you're incapable of performing that task. With effort, proficiency can be earned, but typically those with lower skills are often outmatched by those of higher skill levels. The Demon King, or Mao in Japanese and Archfiend in translation, is also implemented into the continent. Their role in the scenario is to command their servants, the Dark Lords, Majin in Japanese, to torment the protagonist race. If the balance in power is maintained, there's going to be endless conflict and therefore endless entertainment for Ratham. To ensure this, the Demon Kings naturally despise the protagonist race and rule over the monster realm. Panna achieves this with the blood memories which reigns in the blood of the Demon King, and implants urges to cause chaos and corrupts their psyche. Eventually, this causes them to always feel intense bloodlust towards the protagonist race. One Demon King in particular, Nixisa, was so successful that he whittled the population down to a fraction. Since the balance now favored the Demon King too much, Planner implemented the hero system as a countermeasure. Like a typical JRPG like Dragon Quest and Monster Girl Quest, a boy between 13 and 19 is chosen when the world is in peril. And they lose their status when they become 20. They're given a legendary blade, Escudo, which gains power inversely proportional to the number of humans left in the continent. Therefore, if enough humans are dead, even the Demon King can be defeated, and if the hero is the only human left, he can kill even the supreme gods. These factors make up the Planner scenario that the Rance series revolves around. Besides overviewing these rules, Planner doesn't really interact with the world to keep it interesting. He has however meddled with the mortals that managed to contact him directly. In the Sulao era, the Demon King Sulao asked for a protective barrier to make her immune to all attacks. Planner agreed and gave the Demon King an invincibility field which applied to the Dark Lords since they're also born from their blood. The price he paid, however, is now a 1,000-year lifespan to the Demon King, which makes fighting his successor now mandatory before they die. The second event took place in the Gela or Jill era. 4 of the 5 legendary heroes contacted him through the Gate of the Gods and made a wish. These were again granted, with the monkey's paw cost to ensure the balance, and he also put in immortality for its amusement. The thief Chaos and Samurai Nico wished for power to defeat the Margins. They ended up turning into sentient swords that could destroy invincibility fields. The mage Horaga wished for ultimate knowledge, but he now knows the truth behind the Planner scenario and became apathetic, so he shut himself into his tower. Finally, the priest Cafe Artful wished for ultimate beauty, and then Rance things happened to her as a result. Harmonet does not directly influence the world of mortals. It instead created a hierarchy of gods that managed the reincarnation cycle of souls. Below the 3 supreme gods are the Eternal 8. Not much I know about these gods, but they hate each other and they govern different elements such as light, darkness, fire, and water. The rest of the gods are ranked in number, with the most powerful being the first class gods. Notable examples are Ragnarok, who is the alter ego of Raven Plan. She commands the purging of the world if it is decided by Luderatham. Nautila, which is the alter ego of Planner. Whole Plane, which is in charge of administering all souls and circulation. And Alice, the head of the Owl Church, who contacts the Pope and makes the world more chaotic. Finally is God, who is the god of light, and he hates Rance, but he caused the events of Rance 4. The lower class gods are in charge of numerous things involved in the Planner scenario, such as level gods which allow people to level up through experience. A fun fact is the alter ego of Harmonet is a 7th class god named Mac. He's also a level god just for fun. Going back to the reincarnation cycle, all souls originate from Luderatham. So before a soul becomes a living being, it's a blank slate, which is then generated based on the Planner scenario. This includes their skills and level cap. After they're born, over time their souls get polluted from negative emotions experienced by the mortal, which is measured by a percentage. Typical humans have 30 to 50% and are programmed to commit suicide with 80% or more pollution, since polluted cells are not compatible with Luderatham. After they die, the soul of the mortal is cleansed by the Oni in hell, so that they can return to Luderatham where the cycle begins again. Many gods were created from Harmonet's body, but since there are so many different souls, he created another mortal race known as the Kalars. The Kalars live normally as mortals, but they eventually mature into angels that serve the gods and aid in the reincarnation cycle. The last supreme god is Raven Plan, who is responsible for creating the protagonist race. These are the most numerous mortals and are the ones that are meant to generate the most suffering to Miss Luderatham. There have been 3 races in total, with the first 2 being failures. The round ones were ball-like creatures that only hunted shellfish, and eventually hunted them into extinction, but since they were nimble enemies, they were deemed too boring. The next were dragons, who were too powerful. They were mortal with only one weakness, which is that there were no females, with only one sole exception, so they could barely reproduce. This was originally done so that they would fight over her, but instead they achieved peace by establishing a hierarchy for breeding rights. And since they were so powerful, they had no enemies to fight, so this angered Luderatham, who ordered Ragnarok to eliminate them, which resulted in a few survivors remaining in obscurity. Finally, humans were created and were deemed the most entertaining by far. This was due to them having the right balance of strength to protect themselves, but they were still weak enough to despair and die in amusing ways. The remaining creatures on the continent are insects which don't have souls, and they're made from matter flaking from the holy beasts. Soulless creatures only act on instinct, with few exceptions, and despite being known as insects, there are a wide variety of organisms, with cows being the most common throughout the series. There's actually a 5th holy beast, which is known as Orochi, and he was formed from a large amount of flakes of the holy beast, and he now resides in Nippon. He's also responsible for creating yokai who are born from negative emotions for people, and that these have agency despite not having a soul. But because of their relation to Orochi, they can only be found in Nippon and they'll disappear if they leave. There have also been aliens in the series which are not from Little Ratham, but are from different planets instead, but that's not really explored by the series. Besides the 3 supreme gods, there was also one more being that was born from Little Ratham. After he created the 3 supreme gods, a leftover clump gained sentience in secret, which became the Devil King Ratham. He isn't really explored in the series at all, besides Rance 5D, but he wishes to replace Little Ratham and rule over the devils. Ratham in fact made his wife Tero Etiniano out of his own body and made it refer to make more devils. The devils are the antithesis to the reincarnation cycle, since their purpose is to steal souls so that Ratham can gain power. So essentially, Ratham will have more power due to having more soul mass, while Little Ratham will slowly be whittled away. The devils, like angels and gods, have a hierarchy, with the 3 devil princes, which are born directly from Ratham, being at the top, being followed by rank 1 onwards, just like the other gods. Before I end the video, I'll provide a summary of the major events of each era of history. Some information will be spoilers, especially for Rance 10. Each era of history is named after the current Demon King that's still alive. So far there are 7 eras, with the Little Princess being the current era where the games all take place. After the creation of the continent, Clough reigned for 2014 years after Planner selected them as a prototype for the Demon King system. Clough was a round one that became gigantic in size and as powerful as a first-class god after being infused with the blood memories. Another round one named Caelus was given blood, which led to him becoming the first Margin. Many new species were introduced, including the dragon Carlas, Hannies, and Poppies. At this time, the dragons were introduced as the protagonist race. This triggered the blood memories, which caused a great war between them and the Clough. The era ended after the cowardly dragon Abel took Clough down with a sneak attack. Abel ruled for 721 years after he accidentally swallowed the blood of Clough, which caused him to become the second Demon King of history. The sole female dragon Camilla was captured by Abel and turned into a Margin. This gave him a monopoly over the reproductive rights. The rest of the dragon race then waged war, being led by the Dragon King Magioa. They defeated and sealed Abel in a prison. They established a peaceful unified country named Tron. This called Little Ratham to yawn and became bored of the dragon race, leading to the first and only Ragnarok. The extermination was carried out to be more amusing, which led to only a small number of dragons surviving. The third protagonist race, humans, were now created, with Dragon Carlas and Dragon Poppins being replaced with human versions. Then the 4 holy god monsters were created. I want to elaborate more on them since they're so important, but essentially these are godlike monsters who create new races of monsters to inhabit the continent. Suthal was a female human who was then chosen by Planner to be the next Demon King. She reigned for around 500 years and she was very gifted intellectually but lacked power. So she found a way to contact Planner and wished for the invincibility field. This wish was granted at the cost of a 1,000-year lifespan, and the era ended after she melted into a pool of blood. This was due to her lifespan being only 500 years old since she was an experimental prototype. Nikisa was another human chosen by Planner. He reigned for 906 years. During this time, a Nipponese man with level 3 sword combat, Fujiwara Ishimaru, was responsible for unifying Nippon and then half the continent. During this time, many Margins were created, but the gods panicked and tasked Nikisa with killing Fujiwara. The Fire Captain Margin Savior was successful, but then he was sealed as a result in Nippon. After this, the Annihilation War took place after the Opiros Empire attacked Nisisa, which caused the humans to be massacred one-sidedly, leaving only 50% of the population remaining. To maintain balance, Planner created the hero system as a failsafe, but since the population would already have, the Sword Escure already had the power to rival the Demon King. The era ended up ending as Nisisa was mortally wounded after defeating the hero. He finds a dying woman named Gila to be his successor. The resulting Gila era lasted 1,004 years, with her reign being so successful that she destroyed every human nation, leaving the monsters to take over. At this time, humans were kept as playthings and were bred as a countermeasure against the hero system. During this time, the 5 legendary heroes, led by British, who was a parody of the Yeast series protagonist, entered the ancient ruins and reached the God's Gate. British was wounded and got trapped in a concrete trap, while the other 4 were cursed from their wishes. Eventually, a human spellbender named Guy found Chaos, but was turned into a thief by Gela due to his split personality. The two fell in love, but Gela was reaching the end of her reign. Fearing death, she contacted Planner using suicidal means and made a deal for eternal life, but she was thwarted by Guy's other personality. He succeeded in sealing her with Chaos in another dimension and became the next Demon King as a result. Guy was bathed in so much of her blood that he became the next Demon King, where his era lasted 1,015 years. His reign was relatively peaceful since he was able to control the blood loss from his blood memories. He freed the humans and separated them by moving the monsters and margins to the western side of the continent. During this time, the Holy Magic sect unified the humanity entirely, with Moon creating Torsho and Torshin to wage a war against Guy. He was betrayed by his fellow humans however, which caused him to become mad, and led the sect crumbling after his death. The Homan Republic and the Kingdom of Lasers were also founded at this time, with conflicts happening between them frequently. Following the sect's fall, magic users were prosecuted, leading them to forming the Kingdom of Zeth so they can live in peace. At the end of Guy's lifespan, he couldn't find successor, so he kidnapped Miki Kurusu from another dimension and made her his heir. He was only killed by her boyfriend Golgawa Kentaro after becoming human. And Rance was also born earlier in this era. Well, that about wraps it for the video. There wasn't too much information about the gods, and it's quite obscure since it's not really explained in the games and you have to find it through external means, but I think I did what I could. An advertisement would be to check out the Alasoft wiki. A lot of the information I got from this video was from there. Besides that, a lot of the examples are from what I've seen while playing the games, and despite what's in the games and what you may hear, I hope that you're able to experience it yourselves.